Hello everyone, welcome to Ross IELTS Academy. My name is Merhnoor Shafi, and in this and next videos, I will teach you all the necessary skills you will need to know to get a very high score in the listening section of IELTS exam. Remember, my job is teaching you all these tips and the way to take the test, and yours is to practice as much as you can in order to make sure you have full control over those strategies so that you can apply them on the exam day. Are you ready? Let's get started. As you might know, IELTS exam is comprised of 4 skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. I'm here today to talk about the first one, listening. But before we get started, it is very important to know what sections we have in this skill. There are 4 sections in the listening: Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, and Section 4. And each of these sections have 10 questions, and all the questions have the same score. Therefore, since there is no negative score for the wrong answer, you'd better give an answer to all the questions, even if you're not sure whether your answer is correct or incorrect. You can just give it a go. It may work for you. In each section, once at the beginning and once in the middle of the same section, you will be given time to read the questions before you listen. However, in Section 4, you will only be given time once at the beginning of the section to read all the questions, and you will not have extra time in the middle to read the rest of the questions. What I want to say is that for questions 31 to 40, you only have time once to read all of the questions. At the end of the test, you will be given time 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Now, let's get a general idea of what each of these sections look like. We can start with Section 1. What does Section 1 look like in the listening skill? This section is a two-way conversation, and it's about everyday social situations. For example, a person contacts a center, a university, a college, an internet company, a gym, or any other place, and asks for a series of information from the person in charge of these units. The purpose of this section is to evaluate the ability of the candidate to receive and present information or take notes on public and social daily events or situations. For example, in this part, you will be asked to write some information like addresses, names, numbers, and etc. that you hear in this section. A good suggestion to strengthen the skill to answer the questions in this section is to listen to some audio files that include some information like names, numbers, addresses, and etc. and write them down. This is very important. Now, let's look at an example to see how this section works.
Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a travel agent and a customer. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6.
Okay guys, don't you worry at all, because in the next video we will zoom in on this section and I will tell you all you need to know about that. Now let's see what is the second section of the listening skill like. The subject of this section is the same as the previous section. It's something social and general. But the difference is that in the first section we had a conversation, but in the second section we have a monologue based on which we have to answer the questions. The examples of the questions that you might face in this section might be completing a map, multiple choice questions, filling in the blanks, or a table. The important thing about this section is the difference of the multiple choice questions of this section with the ones in the third section. The multiple choice questions that you may encounter in this section are much easier to answer because they are less academic and the options are shorter. So, of course, it's easier. Now, let's look at an example to see how the second section works.
Now let me give you some idea of the layout of the farm. The building where you bought your tickets is the new barn immediately to your right. And we're now at the beginning of the main path to the farmland. And of course, the car park is on your left.
Okay guys, don't you worry at all because in the next videos we'll get into details of this section and you will be good to go. Now let's talk about the third section. What is the third section in the listening skill like? As for the third section, most candidates consider it difficult and they have major problems in it and lose marks. But why is that? The thing is that, as I told you earlier, in this section you might encounter multiple choice questions. But the thing is that the difference of the multiple choice questions in this section compared to the ones in the second section is that they are longer and they are more academic and harder to answer. On the other hand, this is a conversation just like the first section. And at times there are 2 to 4 people present in one conversation and you might face the constant change of people. For example, you are looking for the words of one person, but the other people are talking at the same time, and the person that you should focus on is only denying or confirming the matter. So you should be very careful who to listen to and who to focus on. Despite the great difficulty of this section, if you learn how to apply the techniques and put them into practice, you can easily guarantee an 8 for yourself. Why not? Okay, now let's look at an example to see how this section works.
You will hear a discussion between a business student called Marco and his personal tutor about the courses that Marco should take.
Now let's talk about the last section, section number 4. This section, just like the second section, is a one-on-one lecture and it's not a conversation. And the difference is that here we have more scientific topics and it examines different aspects of an issue. For example, in which part of the world does an animal live? Or what does it feed on? Or what causes it to become endangered? Another difference of this section with all the other 3 sections is, as I told you before, that you will not be given time to read the questions once again in the middle of the section. So you will only have time once in the beginning of the section to read all the 10 questions and then you have to answer the questions. Now, let's look at an example to see how this section works.
Section 4. You will hear part of a lecture about how to give a quality speech. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
Okay, in the next videos, we'll get into details of this section and you'll get more information about that. In this video, we got a general idea of what the listening section looks like. In the next video, we will get into details of section 1. My name is Mehrnoush Hafi and on behalf of Ross IELTS Academy, wish you the best. I'd be very pleased to have you on board. See you soon.